All right, good afternoon. So, real life happened for the last few days, and as a result, I've kind of been letting this ride. So now we'll jump back in and continue to advance from being a zero to being a better zero. So, the few days break was actually beneficial in the sense that, let's see what we got here. This is one of the things I was about to mention. So the few days break was beneficial in the sense that it advanced the timeline on a couple of things. One is because for this account I went ahead and ordered the deluxe version. We now have our gems, and I didn't do that just because I really wanted gems. I actually don't really buy gems a lot unless something I really want comes up. Uh, but there are some things that we're going to need to reach our goals, and for that reason, I wanted to go ahead and get some gems. Uh, so now we have a whole bunch to play with, which is fun and exciting. There are a couple things that we will probably grab. Let's see, let's look here in utility. So we are almost certainly going to get one of these. I don't necessarily recommend buying all kinds of stuff in here. I could go item by item and tell you whether or not I think it's a good idea. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. Uh, the 2 week pass is not a good idea. Individual utility items like this, not a good idea. You're going to end up getting these. This is loot box. We could go item by item. Probably shouldn't do that. If I were throwing around more money, permanent harvesting tools are great. But the one thing here that really just in terms of quality of life, not in terms of actual like monetary benefit, but purely in terms of quality of life, this is the one item where you're going to be glad you spent your 10 US dollars equivalent on. Now, in fairness, I have several alt accounts. I don't have this on all the accounts. If you were only playing a few hours a week, maybe it wouldn't be worth it. But if you're gonna, consistently be playing, this is a great buy. So it's likely we're gonna get one of those. But the real reason I wanted the gems is in order to meet our goals, we're going to want the DLC. Let's see if we can find it. So when I purchased the game, I also purchased Season 2, which is actually, in hindsight, kind of stupid since Season 2 won't do anything for us to reach our goals. Does not actually help us at all. Aside from one thing, which is actually not bad, right here. When we are pursuing advanced logistics, getting the necessary mastery points will be much easier, albeit a little bit time consuming, if we play through some Season 2 chapters and get the mastery points awarded for those Season 2 chapters. That is a easy path to get mastery points, if not a quick path. The quick path is probably if you have a group of friends or helpful people helping you get some of the achievements in Fractals. A lot of those are actually relatively easy to do, and you can do them while completing a fractal. So you get your fractal done if you're trying to raise your fractal level, and then you also get that mastery point, which can get you closer. But assuming that I'm going to be pugging fractals on this account, which I will be, uh, and not wanting to necessarily be that pug who's like, hey, everybody, can you help me get this achievement? Unless that's what I advertised in the first place. Playing through those story chapters then is a good way to get those mastery points. Under any circumstances, I already have it. I already paid for it. What I haven't paid for, and what we are 100% going to need to achieve the mastery points that I described initially, I wanted to achieve to reach the level of a better zero than what I currently am, is Living World Season 3, Living World Season 4, and is Icebrood Saga poking around here somewhere? You would think it is, and Icebrood Saga. So you can see right there the cost of each of these is going to bring us close to 3,000 of our 4,000 gems exhausted. Do I love that? Uh, no, that's relatively expensive. Of course, I've already paid for the gems, so it's not costing me anything right now, but it is relatively expensive at 10, a little over 10. We're looking at about $12 per DLC here. If you take a step back and say, well, if I'm going to Starbucks and I'm going to treat my friend who came with me, I'm spending $12 that morning. So by not taking another NCO that I work with to Starbucks tomorrow morning, I will then recoup the money from that purchase. So not that bad in that regard. But it feels relatively expensive right now. Under any circumstances, okay, boom, purchase made. What does that leave us with? 1,120. So then when I turn around and purchase my copper fed, that's going to leave us with just a little bit of pocket change. That's fine. I consider it a worthwhile purchase. I feel like we're going to get our money's worth out of that. And where is that going to end up? We're going to take that out of there for right now. Ultimately, at some point, I will use that, and then I'll drop this Mystic Savage kit back up there to complement that. But for right now, that way every character I have, assuming I had multiple characters, which at this point I don't, but assuming I did, they could then all have access to that, and it's going to be a huge quality of life improvement. All right, so let's pick up where we left off, because the other thing that I would be waiting for, probably we haven't got there yet, which is I would love to purchase an axe. But I have a sneaking suspicion we still have one more day left before we can do that. So, unfortunate, but we're much closer now after taking a few days off due to other obligations in my life. Yeah. So this is one that you can certainly get with only basic gliding, or in our case now we have gliding and raptor. However, I am not capable of soloing this one. Certainly not on this character. So we might get lucky, land on someone doing it. Clearly that is not the case. So there is something that you can do with these situations. We're not going to do it right now. We're going to go ahead and keep moving on. But what you could do, and what I often do, considering the fact that I do have several accounts and have a number of characters on each account, is I will park this character right here. Grab another character, go do something else. For 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever the case may be, come back to this character, and because of the way the Mega Server system works in Guild Wars 2, it's going to incorporate a number of factors, which it may have actually incorporated, in spite of the fact that I barely stepped away. It's going to incorporate a number of factors in terms of the map it assigns me to. More than likely, this was just a coincidence. It probably didn't change anything. Usually, if you step out and step right back in, it does not actually change the map that it puts you on. But if you step away for a meaningful amount of time, it does change the map that it puts you on. And one of the things that it appears to take into consideration is whether or not there are actively events taking place near your character when you log in. So if you park that character near the hero point that you want to complete, if someone else is doing that hero point, the game recognizes that an event is actively taking place near where you are going to log in at, and it's more likely to put you into that map. Now, was this described to me by an ArenaNet dev or something like that? No, absolutely not. So do I know this as a hard and fast fact? No, I do not. What I'm relaying to you right now is anecdotal, but it has worked for me a lot, and so I'm pretty confident in saying it as an effective means of getting some of these hero points. Again, in this particular case, we got lucky anyway, and some people showed up who wanted to take care of it. Made it a real easy day for us. So inching that much closer to starting on Reaper. I have been reluctant to jump into, Fractal 1 through Fractal 10 or dungeons yet, because I would really prefer to fully unlock Reaper and to get my preferred combination of axe focus and probably greatsword. Although I'm not very good with Reaper greatsword, to be honest, but that's probably the preferred combination before we start jumping into group content. It isn't a question of whether or not I can, in fact, complete the group content with the staff, scepter, and dagger that I currently have. Um, on the contrary, we most certainly could. It's simply a question of how I prefer to represent myself in group content. Even though my account will appear to be a brand spanking new account, a completely new player to the folks in the group, I don't like other folks in the group feeling like I'm a burden, like they have to carry me, which is why I rarely aspire for content that kind of exceeds my skill ceiling. That's just a real bad feeling for me. It just does not feel good. So I'd like to be fully set up, fully kitted out, so to speak, before we start moving to that phase. But we have a number more mastery points that we can still aspire to in Path of Fire, in Heart of Thorns, and we do potentially have the option of unlocking End of Dragons as well, and pursuing that also. So all things that are, on the table, so to speak. So we do have a couple more mastery points on this map that we potentially could get to with only the masteries, or I'm sorry, hero points, that we could potentially get to with the masteries that we currently have. Well, this one we definitely can. There's one right here that we can't currently see. That one's easy. And there's two mastery points, like one right here and one right here, that we can also get to. So we'll run and grab those real quick. This one you can get to. You know what? Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll kind of run from this waypoint around this way. If you come right up here and you jump from just the right spot with only basic gliding, you can glide around and reach that hero point. It's a little bit of a trick. I fail more often than I succeed, but it can be done. So we will at least give it a try. Alright, but prior to doing that, this one should be pretty easy for us to get to. And we'll actually have to waypoint here twice. Alright, we waypointed here once. We can glide down to here, and then head down towards the hero point. And along the way, there will be a mastery point we can get. It's another treasure box, kind of like the one that I got right at the end of the last streaming session, which is where I was standing when I started this streaming session. And then there's also one right over here, which we would again glide to right here and then head over there. But given the masteries we currently have, we'll either waypoint or I suppose we could run around. But either way, we'd have to start from the same launching point given what we currently have available to us. Now if we had Skyscale, we could float around up here and return to where we came from. But we may be able to come from here over there. We'll check it out. We'll give it a whirl. If you know where a lot of the mastery points are, you can acquire a lot of mastery points faster than you acquire the experience to use them. Yeah, we can go from here. We don't need a waypoint again. If you don't know where the mastery points are, it's not, and if you're pursuing the story as well, which is going to give you additional experience along the way, then you may find that you get the experience before you get the mastery points, and you're kind of scrambling to find mastery points to utilize that experience effectively.
All shiny.
Because I know where at least a handful of these are, without consulting any guides, we will probably find ourselves... Oh, and you know what? There's another mastery right here as well, so there are 3 of them within easy striking distance to that waypoint. So now we're kind of stacking them up. The goal being that as soon as we get the experience, like I was saying, we can immediately apply the mastery points and continue to advance. Because we're a long ways away from 100 and change right now. Alright, so generally speaking, this one shouldn't be that bad to solo. Having said that, I'm not optimally set up right now. So it may not be as easy right now as it would be under other circumstances, but I think we'll be able to manage. What we do want to do is take care of this mender before we try dealing with this guy over here, because the mender will be problematic for us. If we're fighting this guy and the mender continues to heal him, then that puts us in a less than optimal position. And right now I'm 100% showing off one of my great weaknesses in Guild Wars, which is I have a habit of skill clicking. That habit goes back to my first probably 4 years playing Guild Wars 2, where I did not have an MMO mouse. I was playing on a laptop at that period of time, so I got very accustomed to skill clicking. Even now that I have a nice Logitech, what is it, G600, I believe it is their MMO mouse. It's a great mouse. Highly recommend. I still have that habit of skill clicking more often than not. Even when I apply the discipline to use the MMO mouse for the skills over here, I find myself clicking over here. So, one of many reasons that this is 0 to 0 and not 0 to hero. Alright, so we grabbed all those mastery points and that hero point. Let's waypoint over this direction and go ahead and move into Auric Basin, where we can grab at least a few of the hero points there. Take just a moment here for my drink. Made that one strong. Okay. So the first couple within striking distance are definitely doable with the masteries we got right now. However, this is another great example of one that I generally do not even try to solo. And again, we get lucky. Great feeling. Forgot when I waypointed, I lost all my little buddies here. So we will part ways with all these minions soon anyway, as we move towards our Reaper build. I mistook him for the hero point. I was wondering why he wasn't behaving the way he usually does. He was a veteran mushroom who was passing by, not actually the hero point.
Brent, I call upon your power.
Stupid mistake, easy to make. We'll give him a whirl. We'll see if we can solo. I would not say that the odds are in my favor. I would say I have middling odds. The mini master thing does help in that regard, though. But not if I'm not paying attention.
They'll have to hit much harder.
Really misutilized some of my dodges, which set me up in kind of a bad position there. That's really when you want to use him with this guy, is when he's leaping. It's taking us plenty of time, but we are managing it, right? And presumably this would be slightly faster if I wasn't camping staff.
They'll have to hit much harder.
So one of the things that this fight doesn't really highlight well, but is useful with the flesh golem in particular of all the minions I'm using here, is the flesh golem really has an immensely high health pool, and certain attacks, projectiles and projectile type attacks like the pull that this mushroom has. I shouldn't have died. I should have just taken it.
Not enough energy.
He can block them, so that positioning your flesh golem and then utilizing the flesh golem's ability to kind of absorb a lot of that stuff is really tremendously helpful. But we limped through it. It was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination. Rarely is when I do a lot of this stuff. But it was effective enough to get us that much closer to Reaper. And then we'll grab this waypoint over here. So when we start really trying to get a lot of experience to advance our Heart of Thorns masteries, one of the easiest things to do there is to repeatedly do the meta on this map, which is Octavine, or the Auric Basin meta. And initially, until we get more mastery, this entrance is the best entrance for us. You should be able to access the east entrance without masteries, I believe, as well. The south and west entrance require the Exalted Mastery, if I remember correctly. So, someone's doing this one. So it would be desirable for us to have that waypoint, even if we weren't doing this hero point, just so that in the future we can participate in that meta event when we need to start really going after experience. The amount of Heart of Thorns experience that we will get from doing that meta event is really fairly significant. So definitely with this guy, and really with anything Heart of Thorns and after, so anything post-core Guild Wars 2, this break bar right here is tremendously important. And that it is more true with group content than solo content. So the core content prior to to that kind of being implemented would be like the core dungeons. The core dungeons weren't really designed with this in mind, so it plays a less significant role. It was added to the core dungeons, but it plays a less significant role. It is pretty significant in Fractals, even though Fractals were introduced prior to that. It's been incorporated into Fractals to a degree where you need to utilize it effectively if you really want to enjoy Fractals. And then for the strike missions, for raids, for a vast amount of open world group content, for so much gameplay, that is just incredibly important. Oop, going the wrong way. All right. Oh, that's real nice, that optical bug right there. I'm assuming they're going to work that out here pretty soon. I hope so. It's my understanding that will actually go away if I turn off post-processing. I just hate messing with my settings and then messing with them again 3 days later when they fix something. I prefer to just deal with that minor illusion for right now.
Found another Maguma spring. Can you help me purify it?
So this is a really interesting thing right here that we're about to... Well, we're going to run a little bit past... No, we're not. We're going to stay right here. All right. This is an area that these days, with mounts, and particularly with Skyscale, new players will come along and they will see something like this. There's a waypoint right up here, which we can't actually see. I wonder if we run back here, we'll maybe be able to see it up there. There it is. There's our waypoint. And they will immediately get the impression that this requires a Springer, or this requires a Skyscale. Like, why was this content designed for me to have a mount? Like, it feels like it's not fair, etc., etc. This content was released before mounts ever came out. So throughout Heart of Thorns, you see a lot of that. And throughout core game as well, you will oftentimes see players say, this isn't fair. Why do I need a mount? You don't. It may appear that way, but there is a solution. Everything prior to Path of Fire, so core game, Season 2, well, Season 1 is now a thing. So core, Season 1, Season 2, Heart of Thorns, Season 3, none of that requires mounts. It may require other masteries, particularly with Heart of Thorns in Season 3, which Heart of Thorns was when the mastery system was introduced. You may need updrafts, you may need, the mushrooms, something like that, but you do not need mounts to complete any of that content. They did not go back to Heart of Thorns and add new content with the intent of people, now using mounts to complete that content. So, just not a thing. So even more than the mushroom guy, this is another one that I will often camp. This is a lot like the frog back in Ark Basin for me, where I will camp this one. I am abysmal at soloing this one, and I'm not going to try. Not even in the name of entertainment am I going to try. So we're going to go ahead and move on. I just wanted to take a look, see if maybe we'd get lucky someone was doing it. And let's see, we're not going to be able to access that one yet. We'll need mushrooms to access that one. Oof. Let's see. What else can we actually access with the masteries we have right now? Well, good old pocket raptors. These guys, when I first... So, Heart of Thorns was more difficult upon release than it is now. I was even worse when Heart of Thorns was released than I am now. Pocket Raptors gave me so much trouble the first couple weeks I was playing through Heart of Thorns. They're actually exceptionally simple most of the time on most classes. So with I'm on a Necromancer right now. With Necromancer, the easy solution is just lay down some AoE. You're gonna, because they're all gonna converge on you at once, or for the most part, they're all gonna converge on you at once, and you should be able to really just knock, because they're very glassy, so they'll go down quick if you could land hits. if you're swinging away, you know, with a mace, which is slow, one-handed, limited cleave, you know, then you're going to have a little bit harder time of it. But if you have something that either, you know, so if you're a warrior and you have 2 axes, just axe 5 and just spin away, or really if you're going sword axe, mace axe, axe, whatever the case. If you have offhand axe and you use axe 5, then you can just spin, and you're going to get rid of 3 or 4 of those pocket raptors immediately before they land any hits. I'm not going to go through every class, but people go crazy over the pocket raptors, and particularly at launch of Heart of Thorns, people really went crazy over the pocket raptors. But they're actually simple once you get a feel for them, which is, I mean, really most things in the game, right? So basic gliding gives you just enough stamina to reach this 0 point. Do make sure you recoup that stamina before you continue to... I have a bad habit of not doing that sometimes. I'll exhaust my entire gliding stamina, go into one spot, and then immediately turn and want to glide. And that's just a habit of someone who, you know, plays on their main account and has all the masteries, and then plays on an account like this and pretty quickly forgets what they actually have. This one should be manageable for us. So we'll go ahead and roll here. Again, this brake bar is huge force. Can't really stress that enough. So knowing which skills are actually crowd control, or you're certainly knowing which skills are your big crowd control, are really important in that, right? So I'm using staff right now, knowing that my big crowd control right here is the fear on 5, which, see, so now I just misused it, which I guess was the point I'm getting to. If I use it when the bar isn't there and I don't know what the cooldown is, now the bar's about to come back up. I still got 7 more seconds on the cooldown for that. That was an avoidable situation if I had just conserved it. Even more avoidable if I was better at using my weapon swaps, because then I could know, hey, I want 2 and 5 to be off a cooldown when I come back around on staff. So then I could switch over here to my scepter, build up some of the, you know, the Condi damage that I want to achieve. We got lots of builds, which this Mechanist, or yeah, there's Mechanist is helping us out with, and then come back around knowing that my staff skills were now available to me. One of many things that, in fairness, I'm not the best at, and if I paid more attention to these things, certainly I would become more proficient. And probably should, in fairness to the people I play with when I, you know, play in group content. All right, so we've got a pretty good chunk of the mastery points that are immediately available to us. If we were to continue on, in fact, we're not going to be able to get out of here because I don't have mushrooms yet, do I? Yeah. It's fine. We could just waypoint, you know, right up here. But we're probably going to leave this map anyway for the time being. Let's see what we got here for Reaper now. Yeah, I feel like, being two-thirds the way there, roughly two-thirds the way there, puts us in a pretty good spot to go ahead and make that transition. Um, so whereas I really hadn't paid any attention to my build until now, I had taken the fact, my Celestial Armor, which is nice. This is a significant improvement from what the boost used to give you. Used to be the level 80 boost gave you, for a while, I think every class got soldiers, and then there was a distinction, and I think for a while Necro was getting like Valkyrie or something like that. And then they went to Celestial. And what I like about that is you can see it gives you a little bit of everything. Which, versus Soldiers, which is really like purely a survivability build. And I don't remember Valkyrie off the back of my hand. I think it mixes like Condi and Vitality or something weird like that. Now we got just a little bit of everything. And that allows the new player to then play with builds and receive some benefit, but kind of take it different directions. Another perk to them giving Celestial is that for a new player, it's a relatively difficult armor set to come by because of what it requires to craft Celestial. So now, I can go to my second template here, and I can start to build out that second template with, what I'm going to want to use with my Reaper build, which is Berserker. But I always have the Celestial here in case I'm going to roll with a Celestial build, knowing that I don't have to craft that expensive. Now, certainly there are some classes I might choose never to use Celestial. That's fine. But generally, with a character that I boosted on a new account, I keep it there. I might switch it over to number 2, but I keep it there so that I can fall back on it at another point in time if I want something. Maybe because I'm going full power with this build once it's complete, might keep Celestial to use in like World vs. World because it's slightly more survivable, and I can use Condi to a greater effect. It's not optimal for World vs. World, or at least last I checked it wasn't. I'm not super big on World vs. World build crafting right now, but it's an option that I'll at least have available to me. So yeah, Celestial's nice, but ultimately not what we're going to want to go with. We're going to want to go with Berserker once we get this build put together. So what do I actually like to use? The one that I have been using, and we'll see if that changes in a couple weeks when they roll out some changes to to all the classes. I haven't read particularly far in advance to see what that's going to look like. I've looked at the subreddit just enough to know that there are some people who are rather angsty about the state of Reaper. I still love it, which is why I selected it for this. I think it is just absolutely a riot to play. And because I don't raid, and because I generally, I've done my, a handful of strike missions, but I generally don't choose to do strike missions. For that reason, I don't need to be top 10% in DPS. I really, for me, I need to play something that I genuinely enjoy, and that's what this is. And then I'm gonna go with that. Going to go with that. Generally, I will include. Actually, I already have it available, don't I? Yeah, a stun break is nice to have, and I did not previously have one available to me. I don't think any of these breaks done. Yeah, I'm like pretty confident of that. This is what I generally roll with Reaper. So while I still don't have my axe, still don't have my focus, we're going to wait a little bit longer on that. I at least have some of the stuff that I wanted to have. And now we can start to enjoy this Reaper Shroud, which is really where the fun of Reaper comes into play. And that's why certain things like this, I wouldn't run this if it wasn't for the fact that it grants additional life force towards my Reaper Shroud while I'm in combat. And one of the traits that I'm running amplifies that effect. So, much better shape. We do not fully have our Reaper build available to us, but we are much closer, and I am pretty happy about that. We're at 40 minutes on this one, so I think I'm going to go ahead and pack it in here, and I'm going to move us way over here. The reason I'm going to do that is because by the next time that I hop on here and stream and record, I should be able to go ahead and get my hands on an axe, get my hands on a focus. And I'm going to want to go ahead and start running some dungeons. And the reason for that is, what do we actually have right now? 3 gold. Which, based on kind of the random junk that I have laying around in my inventory, I can bump that up to probably 4 and change or 5 gold. But I'm immediately going to turn around and spend all that on getting closer to the build that I want. At a minimum, I'll get the weapons that I want. And then a little bit further down the road, I'm going to want to get the armor that I want. And all that is going to cost gold. It'll get us closer to our end goal of being capable of the things we want to be capable of. It's going to get us further from our end goal of accruing any real wealth. And dungeons are not worthless. They are not terrible when it comes to accruing wealth. You do get gold from completing dungeons. Is it as profound as it once was? When dungeons were the thing, they were amazing for accumulating gold. They are no longer the thing, and honestly haven't been for... The game's 10 years old now. Dungeons have probably not been the thing for at least... Excuse me. I need more of that drink. Jeez. Alright, so dungeons have not been the thing for at least 6, if not 7 years. That's fine. It is what it is. They're still not terrible for accruing gold. So, since we decided to jump into this event, let's show off this Reaper Shroud real fast, because it is just a ride. And I'm still not fully capable, and obviously those are extremely weak enemies, but that capability right there of just cleaving through those enemies, it just feels fantastic. So even if I am not doing the amount of damage that whatever is top tier right now, and I genuinely don't know what that is, even if I'm not doing that level of damage, for 90% of the game, if you're doing acceptable damage and it feels good, that is probably good enough. And I think honestly that probably applies to, I'm not going to be stupid and say 90% of players, but I think that probably does apply to at least 60 to 70% of players who want to play pretty well and realize they are not ever going to be admired for their ability, but they want to be adequate and they want to have a good time doing that. And I think that's where they want to be, is finding a class, an elite spec, that is a lot of fun for them and contributes in a meaningful way, even if they're not, shattering some sort of world record at it. All right, so now we are positioned to start jumping into the dungeons thing next time we return. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and pack it up here, and I will see you guys next time.